Now, when we talk about the Leatherman Wave Alpha, I think it is helpful to review models from two of the other large multi-tool brands, SOG and Gerber, that are both G10 handles and are somewhere around the same size and trying to attract the same market. Now, unfortunately, Gerber's offering is no longer available, but you can still buy SOG's version all day long, along with the Leatherman Wave Alpha. What I want to do first of all is run down a list of 3 basic questions about multi-tools and compare these from the different brands to see which one is actually maybe the best for you. You can still buy the MP1 Gerber off of eBay, so that is still an option at times. It is, I think, around $100 or maybe a little bit more at times, but it is, I think, usually cheaper than the Leatherman Wave Alpha. So let's go through 3 questions. Is it tough? Is it easy to use, and is it affordable? I think, is it tough? What I mean by that is, like, can it cut? Can it perform household duties? Is it something that I can actually use on a day-to-day basis? So let's go through the Alpha's functions and then the MP1 and then end with the SOG on each of these. And let me know below in the comments below, what are some other things that maybe we should talk about as we're testing this tool? I want like a simple formula to go through a tool and ask some questions, be able to summarize the functions fairly easy. All right, so I've pulled out the tools on the Leatherman Wave Alpha. Again, if you are new to this tool, it comes in at $200. This is Leatherman's latest iteration of their MagnaCut line. They have the Leatherman Arc now with the MagnaCut, this, and then a whole lineup of knives, both folding and fixed blades. So Leatherman is becoming a MagnaCut powerhouse. They are trying to become a lot more of an elite EDC company. So we have these outside tools. We have the file, which is nice, the knife, the scissors, the saw, and then these inside tools. So yes, I think when we talk about the tool set itself, I think the scissors, for me at least, some people have complained, but my scissors actually cut very well. Now, with the bit driver, one of the great things you can do is from Backcountry CAD on Etsy, and I will leave a link to them below. And if I don't, just make sure to message me in the comments if I forget. But you can use this 1/4 inch bit adapter that is very easy. And then you can even turn this around and use the 1/4 inch bit like this. And then you can potentially maybe even attach this to the lanyard hole, which could be very helpful as well. So, or the lanyard ring, I mean. But yeah, this is a very cool adaptation to this that I think makes a lot more useful. So I think especially with this, the Leatherman Alpha becomes a lot more useful. I have no complaint about its tool set actually. I think its tool set is very cool. I was pretty excited about the scissors being added to the outside. I think that's one of the few times where Leatherman has actually listened to its customer base. Usually it seems like they don't. But in the meantime, Leatherman has got quite a bunch of flack for not adding pouches and bit kits or ruler markings on here, even though I know a lot of you say, well, it doesn't lay flat anymore. Well, I do think it lays flat enough to still put some ruler markings. You could always tip it over and measure like this. So I don't think that's a good enough excuse, but yeah. Anyway, it doesn't have ruler markings, but I think Leatherman could have solved that another way. Now, my complaint with this was that these scales right here get dirty very easily. Different people are, or at least Backcountry CAD, he is designing some like steel scales to go on here that look the same topographical, but will be a lot tougher. I think that could maybe be the answer that a lot of people might not know they need, but that might fix a lot of issues, but it will make the tool a little heavier, so there is that. I think this comes in at 8.5 ounces, so I do think it's tough enough, at least for the inside. We'll see about the G10 scales, how long they last. Unfortunately, they do get dirty. You will have to clean them. Is it easy to use? Yeah, I think it is easy to use, except the pliers. That's a big sticking point. I think the pliers are a major issue with Leatherman. They really need to change that. The weight, I think, is okay at 8.5 ounces. It has a lot of outside opening tools, not every tool, but a lot of outside opening tools. Is it affordable? No. I do not think for a lot of people this is really that affordable. At $200, it is one of the more expensive multi-tools out there. So no, probably not. This is more for collectors in reality, or those who have a lot of money to spend on everything. But it is a fun tool, and I think Leatherman did a good job designing it, except it does need some things fixed on it to be even better. All right, now I realize that a lot of you may not be familiar with Gerber's MP1. This is a design that I think Gerber should have kept, and they should have made it better. Now, there were 3 designs. There was a civilian design, and then I think there was like a crew weapon design, and then a rifleman weapons design. They all had a different tool set. I forget which design this is. I think this might be the civilian tool set, but a lot of these had like a little wire stripper on the edge of their cutters, which was interesting. These are spring-loaded. One of the complaints about this was that there was quite a bit of flex in the plier handles, but it was unique in that Gerber offered these locking bit drivers. Now, I think that's just really great. Locking right there. And then you had some very long tools. You had this very long flat screwdriver, a very long micro screwdriver. I was going to say mini, but very long micro screwdriver. And then you have this knife, which is fairly long as well. And then this was easy to access. You could just pull these handles down. Yeah, a very nice tool. And then on this side, you had quite a pry bar. This is a fairly chunky tool right here. Not only a pry bar, but a bottle opener. For those of you who want a bottle opener, this is a bottle opener. That is fairly huge. And then it came with a chisel. That is something you don't see a lot of times. And then the serrated blade. Now, the one thing I wish that Gerber had added in this design was a pair of scissors. I can't remember if some of the other designs had that or not. But yeah, Gerber definitely should remake this tool and make it even better. I think it could definitely be a contender against the Leatherman Wave Alpha. So there it is, Gerber MP1. If you haven't, definitely pick one of these up. The main gripe is the flexible handles, and different people have snapped these, so just be aware and don't use these to change a muffler on your car or replace an engine. But otherwise, pretty fantastic tool set. And I'll weigh all these at the end, but I really like what Gerber did, and these are G10 handles. Gerber did several, I think, with G10 handles. There was the smaller tool, the Bull Rush, that they tried to use sort of upgraded materials, and I think a couple more, but this is one of those that stands out the most to me. Now, SOG just recently came out with the Telus, and this is fascinating because you have the bit driver in the end of the tool, whereas in Leatherman still sticks with their Leatherman style flat bit. SOG has upgraded several years ago to offering 1/4-inch offerings. I'm not a huge fan of this system, but it is here. I would prefer a dedicated 1/4-inch bit driver. One of my complaints about this is it's not very useful as a 1/4-inch nut driver, and I need that a lot of times in my work. And so that's, I think, one of the big reasons I actually stopped carrying this tool is because I didn't feel like the bit driver was quite sturdy enough for what I needed at work. Otherwise, I found this tool more competent than I originally thought. One of the things I like about the SOG Telus is there are a lot of implements that are easily accessible. So it has this 440 knife, it has the can opener, the bottle opener, and the flat screwdriver, this Phillips screwdriver, and the saw. Now, one of the big complaints by some other people was that this Phillips screwdriver does not fit a lot of Phillips screws. And I think that's a valid complaint, but also remember that you are welcome to use every size available to man of 1/4-inch Phillips bits. So I don't think that's necessarily a deal breaker, because you could always just bring bits to use here at the end. But I think that is a valid complaint. I did find that it didn't work as well as some other Phillips screwdrivers that are just standard on a multi-tool. Now, one of the big things too is that these are spring-loaded pliers. I think you'll notice a pattern here. Both Gerber and SOG do a pretty good job, or did a pretty good job, at least with the MP1, and SOG does a pretty good job with these spring-loaded pliers. I like this in that it's a little bit closer to like the Cobra XS from Knipex, and I found this to be a fairly nice plier head to work with at work. And I think it worked a little bit better than a normal plier head in some situations, so that was nice. And then SOG has these inside tools where you have your file, and then this flat screwdriver that I think maybe was supposed to be a chisel, and then this little like micro awl, which is a little different, and then a micro screwdriver, and then this set of scissors. So all in all, I think the SOG Telus has a fairly nice tool set, and the G10 feels pretty nice. Now, when we talk about the 3 questions, is it tough? When we talk about the Gerber, is it tough? Well, you saw that big flex in the handles. I think that was the big reason why maybe they stopped using it. But then I have heard some people say, well, the G10 handles on the Leatherman flex a little bit as well. So I can actually get some flex right there as well with these. And then maybe a little bit of flex when you, let's see, let's take this scissor tool out and let's see. I don't know. I don't see a whole bunch of flex here. Let me do it this way. Yeah, so there is actually a fair amount of flex right here in these G10 handles when you do it that way. These are not as tough as the Leatherman Wave Plus. So if you're looking for the toughest tool out there, this is definitely not it. I would not say, just from seeing that. So is it tough? All of these tools, even the SOG, I would say, I think I noticed a little bit of flex in this. I'm trying to remember. Yeah. So there's a little bit of flex in this because they've tried to lighten these tools. So none of these tools are meant to be like the Leatherman Surge. That's not the market they're trying to reach. It's people that want some upgraded materials, something different than just a plain steel work tool, something more to carry around the house and so forth. With this one, it's more geared toward a lightweight camping experience. Now, is it easy to use? So with the Wave, we've already talked about that. With Gerber, yes. Spring-loaded pliers, yeah, that makes it easier to use. All the tools on the outside, yeah, that's easy to use. What about the SOG Telus? Yeah, that's easy to use. All these tools here. It's not as easy to use these. And then my big complaint was that you actually have to open this to unlock the tools, or you can just open another tool. But the 1/4-inch bit driver is easy to use. These pliers are super smooth. It is, you cannot understand how wonderful SOG pliers are until you buy one. That's just, and what I'm talking about is how easy they are to deploy. That's something that you'll be shocked at if you've been carrying a Leatherman for a while. Now, is it affordable? Well, this is $75. This is $200. This is probably $100 to $120 on eBay used, if you can find it. So all these tools are so much more affordable. They're about half price to the Leatherman Wave Alpha. Are there better options? Yeah, we've talked about a lot of budget options on this channel, but these do offer some things that the budget options don't. Now let's go ahead and weigh these tools. The first tool is the SOG Telus. Now this comes in at 6.8 ounces. The Gerber MP1 comes in at 8.8 ounces, and then the Leatherman Wave Alpha comes in at 8.5 ounces. Let's move this over to grams. 239 grams for the Leatherman Wave Alpha. The Gerber MP1 comes in at 248 grams, and then the SOG Telus 193 grams. And so I think in the end it's up to you, but I hope that this has been helpful to give you some alternatives to the Leatherman Wave Alpha and take a second look. I feel like a lot of people forget that SOG Telus even exists. And a lot of people have forgotten that Gerber ever made the MP1. And I think that's something valuable even now to add that maybe to your collection. And maybe someday you'll want to carry this. You never know. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and let me know some more things that maybe we should talk about with the Leatherman Wave Alpha. What are your experiences? What are some negatives? What are some positives? And I'll enjoy reading your comments below.